Photography was the last thing I ever had in my mind. You know, I was just a kid, you know, a teenager mowing lawns to make a few bucks to buy records. And then there was one guy that, you know, he used to always mow the lawn, but it was like really high. So I knocked on his door. I said, "Do you need the lawn mowed?" He's like, "No, I do it myself." And I said, "Well, it doesn't look that way." And so he kind of looked at me, kind of smirked, and, you know, he was this sarcastic kid. So he said, "I'll tell you what, I got something." So he came back with this camera and he said, "If you mow my lawn for the season, I'll give you this camera." And once it was in my hand, it just like, I was kind of like curious about it. My brother took me to the first concert, which was Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young at Roosevelt Stadium, 1974. And that's when everything changed. A friend of mine who was friends with my parents, our parents were friends, he bumps into us out of the 100,000 people, and he's got a camera dangling around him. I said, "Oh, where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going to the front to take pictures." And I watched him kind of go into the sunset, you know, by the front of the stage. And then a few months later, went to a family event where he was at, and he showed me these pictures that he shot there. And I was like, wow, this is cool, you know? After I had the camera and I started, you know, trying to figure out how to develop film, I went to the teacher. He had a summer class, and he's like, "You know, I'm not really doing the summer thing, but I'll give you some lessons." And he took me under his belt. And once I put that first piece of paper in, that blank piece of paper, and it just like all of a sudden it came to life. It was like magic. My father bought me an enlarger on my birthday before high school. I turned my bathroom into a darkroom. It was kind of a way to escape, to get in this dark room and just kind of, you know, put some music on and watch these pieces of paper turn into life. You know, my friend Kenny Reff, who I met at the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young show, that kind of, I kept in touch with him. And he's like, "Why don't you just, you know, start sneaking your camera in, you know, and bringing it?" So I used to take my camera and wear baggy clothes, film in the one boot, and then my long lens in the other boot. And then I used to put the camera body, you know, so it was flat. I would put it around my, you know, my neck, and I would sneak in and give the guy a few bucks. And then once you're in, you know, you need to figure out how to, you know, get your spot. And I took some pictures. It was Elton John, and it was Thanksgiving. I brought like one roll of film. Unfortunately, John Lennon came out that night. I was out of film already. So that's the last time I ever ran out of film. So that concert, I got some images back. That image in the book, it documents my beginning. The next one, my brother brought me to see Eric Clapton at the Nassau Coliseum, 1975. I was 15. When I saw that photo stand up to other photographers in the magazines that I used to look at, I was like, wow, I could do this, you know? That's when it really like hit me. And I was like, all right, who's playing next? You know, I would get in there, and then once the opening band would go off, I would jump over the barricade and get 10 rows back, dismantle the seats to find a little spot in the middle. So once the ushers would come down, they don't go anymore, and they're not going to hassle anyone. Everyone's standing on their seats. So I have my little spot in between for the show, and I'm able to shoot the whole show. And when Kiss came, they played twice in 77. Rock and Roll Overture, I believe it was. And that's when I got that iconic Ace photo with the smoking guitar. And that's like really did it for me. I was like, wow. I started doing flea markets, you know, rock and roll flea markets. And I was just like in business making money, you know. Kiss was playing a few nights. I went to the first night and started selling my pictures, and I got arrested. Kiss was, you know, into, you know, they didn't want anyone bootlegging their photos or T-shirts. Didn't tell my parents, you know, because they would tell me not to do it, obviously. And then I just picked up the Circus magazine, and I looked at in the masthead, and it said 115 East 57th Street. And so I hopped on the train, the same train I went to Madison Square Garden, and their secretary kind of took a liking to me and said, you know, the art director, I'll see what I can do. Just wait here. And he told me, I like what you're doing, but you need to shoot Kodachrome. You need flash. They went to this flash thing, and I was shooting Ektachrome, available light. I didn't care. I wanted to be in Circus magazine. Aerosmith played at Giant Stadium with Ted Nugent, Mahogany Rush, and I snuck my camera in, and Aerosmith was playing in daylight, so it was a little easier to shoot Kodachrome because you didn't really need a flash, and I was pretty far away, but I had a long lens. It was just the right circumstances, and I got some great images. Dropped them off at the Circus magazine. I told them I had some cool images of Aerosmith, and they were said, oh, bring them by. They're not letting anyone really shoot them these days, so bring them by. When I saw that Circus magazine, 1978, the Beatles were on the cover, and I kind of going through it, and then I hit the centerfold, and there was a picture of Steven Tyler. I immediately went down to the photo credit, and there was my name, Mark Weiss, you know, and I was like, whoa, that is cool. So it's the first time I see my credit in Circus. They asked me to shoot Van Halen in '79 at Convention Hall in Asbury Park. They did sound check, and I walked upstairs. There was no one around to stop me. Eddie was there, and Michael. And I told them who I was. I brought the Circus magazine. I showed them what I did, and they were like, you know, cool. I said, you mind if I take some pictures? You know, just hanging around. And he didn't have his guitar. He just smoking a cigarette with a beer, just hanging out. And that was like my first picture of Eddie. My parents wanted me to go to college. Like every parent wants them to go to college. So I went to Ramapo College. It was like the party school. You know, it was up in Matawan, New Jersey. And I was never good in school. When I was a teenager, I got in a motorcycle accident and I had a head injury, and it kind of like screwed up my head. And I found out later on in life that it really did affect my memory, and that blessing to have photography in my life, because it really helps me remember. And writing this book and telling the stories and getting stories from other people, putting it together, it's therapeutic. At the same time, in 1978, my teacher, Walter Reed, in high school, and they were friends of mine, and I would go visit them in that year. So I was already out of school. I was just started going around Ramapo College, talked to them. Told them what I did. I said, Circus magazine now I'm getting into. And he's like, well, I have this guy named George Dassinger that's working for the Spectrum magazine, or it's a newspaper in New Jersey. He brought me in to shoot Peter Frampton. This is 1979, still a teenager. Peter just wanted someone that was kind of like low key. He was just he just had a motorcycle accident. He only wanted to do photos at his house in Westchester. So George said I'd be the perfect fit. And I took pictures of him just being really casual. He had shorts on, he was jumping on a trampoline, and really showing me all around his dark room, which we talked about. He told me his father got him his dark room, you know, and I told him my story about my dark room. And so we kind of hit it off. There was the doghouse, and Rocky was sitting in there, and I said, let's do some pictures with Rocky. And he smiled right away, you know, so he sat next to Rocky at his doghouse, and that was the publicity photo they used. In 1980, I was getting photo passes. There was a show at the Field Raceway, which is only like 20 minutes from my house. And Southside Johnny was the headliner. Hall & Oates was there. And Southside is on the side of the stage watching the opening act. He's like, you should be shooting that kid up on stage. I looked, I'm like, all right. I figured he was just trying to get rid of me, which he probably was. But then I looked and I'm like, oh, this kid's pretty good. And went there and took like a roll of film of John. And that's the first time I shot John. He was in a band, John Bon Jovi, he was in a band called The Rest. I kind of like couldn't believe it. It's like finding that diamond in the rough, you know, like that early Elvis photo, you know. So I had an opportunity to shoot Eric. It was the Black and Blue tour. He needed photos with he wanted photos with his motorcycle, his Harley that he rode up on stage. Harley would give him bikes to, you know, use for the night. He rolled his bike out and we took some pretty cool photos. At the same night, after I was done with that, I went to see if I could do some shots of Black Sabbath. So that was the first time I actually shot Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio in the band. Ronnie comes up to me and he goes, you got everything, Mark? You know, and I was very young still. And he's like, yeah, I think I got it. He goes, well, anything else you want to do? You want to do some solo shots? I'm like, yeah, okay. That was our beginning of our relationship. Ronnie was a really special guy. I shot him through the whole decade, even to, you know, before he passed away. I started meeting publicists. One of the publicists I met was Carol Kay, who was worked for Lieber Krebs, and they managed Aerosmith. You know, took me under her wing and let me use the office to make calls and this and that. Joan Jett was kind of hanging around the office. They just let me be. We're about the same age, so, you know, we had a good vibe, and just let me be on the bus. So, you know, Joan, after a show, listen to some new demos, some tapes, and takes the headphones and just starts listening, and I'm just, you know, waiting for the reaction. Then I just grabbed it. You know, it's just those moments that just capture time and place. I was getting lots of pictures in Circus. They were sending me on assignments, but I still wanted to do covers. You know, I wanted that cover photo shoot. They wanted me to shoot Ozzy. And I was like, yeah, that's great. This is it. Great. He came out with a pink tutu and he put on his cowboy boots, and that was supposed to be a black and white photograph inside. it ended up being the cover because it was such a dynamic photo. It kind of like put me in odds with the Osbourne camp because it wasn't supposed to be a cover. And then later on, after it got all this publicity, it turned around and being really positive. And then I developed a great relationship with the Osbournes. So it was the 13th anniversary of Circus magazine. And I talked to Jerry and, I said, let's do something different, something special. I had a relationship with Ozzy. He goes, I said, I had an idea of him just jumping out of a cake. So that was the plan. So he's like, yeah, here's a budget. I went to LA. And then after waiting a few hours, Sharon came up to me. He goes, I'm trying to get Ozzy out. He doesn't really want to do the shoot. He just shaved his head. She starts painting Ozzy with makeup, black makeup, like Halloween makeup. And then I saw the balloons on the side just kind of like, bouncing around. I said, Ozzy, just look at me. Don't turn around. And I just took the balloons and I kind of stuck them on his head. And he knew I was doing something, but at this time, he trusted me. And it looked like Mickey Mouse ears, and I took it and they used it for the cover and the rest is history. Steve Wozniak put this US Festival together. The US Festival had 3 days. It was like a new wave day, a rock day, and a heavy metal day. And the heavy metal day was the biggest day. It was like 375,000 people. Motley Crue went on. Before they played any of their songs, like no one really knew what Motley Crue was. Like Shout at the Devil, like they had 300,000 kids, shouting at the devil. And the moment with Tommy Lee just standing on his drum set, just looking at the audience, like he commanded it, it was just a sign of times to come. Michael Kirk started this magazine called Faces. And again, it was like, gave me so much access. We did so many photo shoots and come up with ideas. And, kind of gave me a little game on to the next phase, which was album covers. And at that time, I was working for Us Magazine as well. They were doing a story on Van Halen. And they sent the writer and they sent me. And we spent a couple days with them. They remembered me from the other shoots we did. And Eddie backstage with his Kramer guitar, he... and with Valerie in the shot, I believe that was when they were doing the Lost Weekend, just like back in '79, he just smiled. So I took it as, okay. So I got that, that photograph, which something special. So I got hired. I got a call from Atlantic Records that they wanted me to do the Stay Hungry. They had a band called Twisted Sister. I knew who they were from the Jersey days. They were playing clubs back then. And they had this idea about shooting them in this room with makeup and without makeup in this kind of old abandoned room. So they said, do you think you can do it? I said, sure, So I had this set built in my studio. I went through the motions and I still didn't feel the magic. A couple of the guys in the band were kidding around and giving me the finger, just goofing around. And I didn't feel I had it. I felt D was holding back. This time, let it out. Just fucking go for it. And he just started banging the walls and hitting, screaming and yelling. And on the 36th frame of that one roll of film that we shot ends up being the cover. There was a reason why this photo was chosen. It gave the energy of what that band was about. Really proud of this cover that we came up with. I did all these covers, Lizzie Borden. I kind of have a style of my own. I use a lot of smoke and then there's the other end where, like Suicidal Tendencies. We just got hit a location. We found a really cool spot. And again, it represented what they were about. Hit Parader wanted me to shoot Guns N' Roses for a possible cover. And this is before they even came out. They just wanted me to do a photo shoot with them because they just knew that they were going to be big. I got introduced through Motley Crue that I had a relationship with, said, no, you'll like Mark. Trust me, give him a chance, give him 30 minutes. And so I went and set up a photo studio in LA. They weren't warm and fuzzy, they were just, we did it. You could tell they kind of didn't want to be there. We went to Florida when they opened it for Motley. And that's when I got the photo on the cover. And the photo on the cover, he's giving me the finger. I found out later on that means he likes you. I think. Yeah, Anthrax, I'm the Man. And they had an idea to do this graffiti and come up with this this artwork and just have some fun. And the Anthrax guys were like, they were super excited. And later on, I found out that they were big fans of, you know, me, and they used to see me at concerts when they were, you know, in the early 80s when they would go to shows. And they told me later on, they would always know when, you know, I would, you know, when the band was coming out, because I would be in the photo pit. I used to love going on tour. I mean, maybe after 2 weeks, it might be get a little much, but I would go out for, you know, a few days to a week to 2 weeks, ways to get moments that you would never be able to get. Doc McGee called me up and said, hey, you want to take a trip to Russia? I'm bringing the band over. We're doing this music festival and we're going to check it out. And we want to document it. He pulled this thing together with all these bands, Motley Crue, Scorpions, Skid Row, Cinderella. It was quite amazing. Ozzy was there. Again, it was all of the bands that I, you know, had relationships with, and to all get on a plane together, I knew it was going to be historic. I wanted to be ahead of the game and capture them as they're coming off. So I made sure that I was the first one. So I did a little bit of orchestrating the moment, kind of choreographed this huge photo up on these railings of everyone that was on the plane, you know, without a megaphone, yelling at 50 rock stars trying to look this way. John was recording Blaze of Glory in LA, and Doc said, you know, John wants you to document it and videotape it and take photos and just be a fly on the wall. And I said, yeah, of course, you know, that's what I do. And so I came there, bought some tripods, because here I have to do video and photos. So I set up tripods for the video camera, and then I would take photos and in between takes. And then, you know, when they were off camera, I would pose them a little bit. But here I am with, you know, Little Richard and Elton John. It was amazing, you know, just to listen to them record music. Yeah, we got some amazing imagery. For the Blaze of Glory, we were on a butte in Utah. We had to be helicoptered up. It was dark out. I didn't know where it was, you know, so I would set up a tent. And the next day I realized like I was like this far away from the end of the cliff. But I lived to tell the story. Most of the bands I worked with had some success, and I, you know, kind of followed their success and kind of made me a little more successful. 1980 to 1990, to me, was the decade that rocked. It's different today. So I feel very, you know, fortunate to be a photographer that likes rock and roll during that decade. Everyone thinks that digital photography is like, you know, it's ruining the art of photography, and everyone has a camera and all this, but it's really just a tool that's more accessible. So if you have the drive and the passion, you know, go for it. It's all about kind of finding bands that you like and music that you like and wanting to be part of. And then they'll ask you to go on the road and do their album covers and then possibly be the next Mark Weiss.